used to buy software based on how it's going to enhance productivity of our staff, our employees. So the main driver of value was very often the seat, right? The number of users, the number of employees that the
Mhm.
system is going to make more productive. In a situation when an AI tool can replace an employee, that kind of legacy pricing model might not be useful anymore.
Right.
But thousands, if not millions, of organizations are used to it. So that's where I was wondering from kind of your perspective, what do you believe is going to be the main trend in how we market uh, AI tools or tools that have a significant AI component to them?
But I think what we are seeing just looking across this ecosystem is that there are different trends of you see some companies where the pricing just keeps pushing up and up and up. And it's this story of we replace your employees. And I think for those companies, we're going to keep seeing the polarization where once we have more data and more results, we can look back and say, well, these companies were really valuable and there actually is differentiable quality between a tier A and a tier C player, and that might be the difference between paying $100,000 and $50,000 a year for that software. On the flip side, I think it's much more difficult in that down market space where you see margins competed away. And so there's this downward pricing spiral because now all of a sudden everyone thinks they can replicate the incumbent players, and the number one thing that they want to compete on is price, which if you think about it from an economic perspective, I see that as everyone will keep undercutting on price, trying to sell the same thing for less. And so it becomes a question of the only way to play in that market is to offer substantially more value at the same price, ideally, to try and avoid that deflationary spiral.
So on one hand, you're saying that we are at the risk of some price wars and driving prices to kind of unsustainable level. On the other hand, what I see right now is that organizations are mm, shifting to more usage-based pricing to preserve those margins because AI, kind of using AI is so expensive. So how would you reconcile those two? The very high cost of goods, cost of running the system, much higher than the cost of your AWS bill, and still trying to compete with that race to the bottom for the lack of a better word.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. And I think what you're talking about is companies that probably are a little bit more mature. I do see the shift towards a lot of usage based pricing as well, but it's very dependent on what that product does because companies prefer the transparency to understand how much they're going to end up paying at the end of the month. And so we see a lot of overruns in terms of, oh, my Anthropic bill was 50 times what we would have expected, which I think in time becomes challenging. More of what I was commenting on is I think we're going to see a polarization of some tools move so close to free and maybe have to figure out other ways of monetizing, whether that's ads or affiliate marketing. Whereas on the other side, these agent tools, which probably are the ones that become more usage based, continue to rise in price and become more and more premium as their differentiator. And maybe that divide becomes what can I build easily versus and have enough quality just coming together versus what actually has substantial differentiators and can really help orchestrate workflows or save me headcount. And that's where you push higher. And usage based is akin to employee based, where it's almost thinking about paying hourly versus that seat based becomes less valuable, and that's kind of that scary area where we might see a pricing war. And one of the ways I've seen this manifesting is lots of people send me open source libraries right now, which are full-fledged apps that take a lot of the work out of whatever you're doing, except developers are just enjoying creating, building, and publishing these open source tools. And some of them are starting to get traction and try to monetize. And what that is doing is giving almost a free offering where you could just go and download the software and it works right out of the box. And that's undercutting some of the incumbents across a lot of these industries. I think it's less applicable as you move into enterprises where there is a hesitancy to adopt a tool that's free. But even then, we can see companies like Zoom, which I know you're really familiar with, did pretty well with getting to enterprise. We can see ways that it'll pretty immediately be able to do the functionality of, say, Calendly or DocuSign or lots of other small apps that companies are willing to pay for. And as more and more of these tools come out, I think you'll end up seeing that there's a lot more competition in these terms of types of markets, especially for the lower paying customers where you're probably trying for a PLG motion or a large audience.
That's fascinating because it seems like it could snowball as the smaller companies become um, they have all those tools that increase their productivity. They could produce more software, and we're going to have more exponentially more tools, pieces of software available to us when it would be difficult to find your way through that kind of massive selection. Uh, that's a little bit scary, but but exciting.
I agree. It's definitely scary.